Check.
Yeah. Mahalo nui. Aloha, everyone. Aloha. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. I arrived the other day, and it was a red-eye flight the other night, but we had plenty of excitement. We got tossed around, bounced around from cloud to cloud until we reached LA, and that was a lot of fun. Wow, I mean, every time I think about what's going on with this particular subject matter, even to this moment, I still go, wow, because it's not something we talk about in Hawaii. We just don't bother. It's so pedestrian. It's just, everybody's this anyway. So it's like, why would you talk about that you have hair? You know, it's like, everybody's got hair. So why is that a subject matter? So I'm really, but for myself, being born and raised in Hawaii, where all my neighbors, everyone is a mix of something, and to be honest, if you're not a mix of something, there's mixed envy going on. So it's like a lot of people wish they were mixed something else, kind of a thing. It's a thing, you know. So, but for us, it doesn't matter. It's like whatever. We go to school together anyway, so I'll see you tomorrow. It's such a matter-of-fact subject, but in the past 2 years now, it was almost kind of a slap in the face to me to be woken up to this realization that, well, by the way, for some people, the experience isn't so matter-of-fact. It's quite unusual given their circumstances and their environment. And I'm like, I don't know how to deal because I don't have necessarily that experience. That's not 100% true. I've been away where I've taken myself away from Hawaii and then experienced stuff. And I was like, for me, it's like walking down the street and then there's this big picture window of a store or a building and you're looking inside that window and seeing stuff happen that makes you go, and then you carry on. It isn't something that I feel affected me necessarily. That was relative to my own experience. How'd you like the cartoons before the movie? I threw this together kind of to illustrate the point that it really is more pedestrian than the rest of the world would like to admit, I think. Because we're all Hapa. You have a mixed couple, they make Hapa babies, right? And who would have known that he's either Japanese or Korean? Right? I wouldn't have been able to tell. Let's see. Who would have known that he's any of that? Who would have known that he's one of that? You know? And yet, you know, so there are these assumptions that we make that whatever made us is actually a composite of the whole color wheel, you know? So, I threw this together and wanted to carry this as, to kind of hold the thought there for a moment. And of course I had to throw in one of my favorite heroes, Princess Kaiulani, who happens to have the same extraction as I do. But I wanted to create a home for this conversation to happen. And let me come back to that point. So I'm gonna switch PowerPoint for a moment. And because I prepared another one that I wanted to talk from. So, so here we are, and we're talking about creating a home for the conversation to happen. And when you talk about home, you're talking about something that's an open door policy. It's warm, you kick your feet up, and you feel relaxed. And so that is exactly the kind of spirit, the kind of environment that I wanted to foster with this conversation. And so downstairs in the store is this one book is on the shelf, Ordinary Ohana, written by Lee Kataluna. She used to be a TV reporter on the news in Hawaii, and she writes a lot of op-eds in the newspapers about various subjects, stuff that bothers her or stuff that she thinks we should be talking about or do talk about across, you know, in society in Hawaii and stuff like that. Well, she's also a writer, and I saw that downstairs on the shelf, and I said, oh, I I need to make another slide. I need to have this in there because that's what I'm talking about. For us, it's ordinary. This is home. This is ground zero. This is where we come from. There's nothing unusual about it. In fact, to talk about any other type of environment is the unusual thing. And so I wanted to talk about some of the work that I did in, I translated Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, not the Sorcerer's Stone, because we talk about rugby and not football. That's the only change. Other than there's an extra U once in a while when you read the book. But my Hawaiian translation of the first Harry Potter is coming out in the next couple of weeks. And it was only being made aware that when I was invited to come and do this presentation, I sat up and thought about it for a while. And I've been going back and forth because it still hasn't come out. So I've been going back and forth with the publisher a lot by email and on the phone. He's over in Scotland. And we talk about it. And then I started to think, hey, wait a minute. I got perfect examples here to be able to illustrate, right? Because you want to be able to have something to point at as a talking point, to illustrate a particular point. I got tons of material just off of the material that I had been translating here. So I translated this into Hawaiian. First time it's ever been done. It was a lot of fun to do. I really enjoy it. I'm not getting rich either. It's just gas money, once in a while, a royalty check, and that's about it. You can treat yourself at McDonald's, that's about it. But that really wasn't the point. The point was get it out there because it's needed, and it really, to internalize it in another language, it really, you have a lot of wow moments. These like firecrackers, they go off. Just because you said it in a different language, and it's mundane in one language, but when you put it in the other language, wow, that's amazing. Well, this is, this is chapter 6, Mukunda Eono, and I'm basically trying to communicate my experience with the concept of Hapa, and if I can illustrate that and kind of give you a feel for it, well, this is one of my languages. This is my family's heritage language, Hawaiian. And here's Hapa. Hapa ha means a quarter. So the word Hapa was created for math purposes back in the 1820s. So it does come from the English word half. We don't have F in Hawaiian, so the next closest consonant would be P. So you go Hapa. And not only did we take the word, but we also appropriated the meaning of the word, and now it has more meaning to it than just half, 50%. It can mean a bit of this, it can mean part of that, it can mean a portion of this, it can mean some of this, it can mean most of this, it can mean any of those concepts. So it can have a more specific, such as in Hapa ha. Ha is the number 4. If you go Hapa and ha and Hapa or any number, it becomes a fourth in this case. So why do you suppose there's this, if you're familiar with the story, the book? Ekolu is 3. Ekolu Hapa ha is 3/4. So going from platform 9 3/4. That's it. So that's Hapa. And taking from this particular chapter is, the next chapter, Mokuna Ehiku, chapter 7, Kapapale wa Wai is the sorting hat. It was one of the funnest chapters actually to work on. So I'm taking from this particular chapter, and you're seeing stuff that hasn't come out yet. This is, I'm showing it to you guys as my gift. And so we have Seamus Finnegan, and they've just been sorted. They're sitting at the table, and all of a sudden this big banquet just kind of magically appears. Let me see. So I kind of want to read through part of this for you to give you some context, some background. So they're sitting at the table, and these are the different kinds of foods that are popping up on the table. You got different kinds of cakes. You got I guess molds of jelly sounds like bundt cake to me, the way it came out. You got strawberries, you got jelly, you got puddings and stuff. And then it says here, when Harry reached out to grab treacle pie, which is a bit of British culture, treacle is kind of a molasses. The conversation turned to their families. And NeSmith speaks up and he goes, look, he Hapa wo, I'm Hapa. And he says, my dad's a muggle. And my mom didn't tell him that she was a witch until after they got married. He was a bit shocked. So that's the section right over there. And it says, everyone else laughed when he talked about his family like that. So he's Hapa. And this is how it reads in the English. He goes, I'm half and half, said NeSmith. Me dad's a muggle. Mom didn't tell him she was a witch till after they were married. A bit of a shock, a nasty shock for him. So the realization that they're gonna have Hapa kids must have been something for that husband. But everyone just laughed about it, and then they moved on. They moved on to Neville next. So NeSmith is Hapa. Another reason, and I caught this by doing the translation. I had never read the books myself. I only had read it pretty much in every case where I translated these books. It was my first time to read the book, like as I'm translating. Usually what I do is I have the publisher send me the text. I always ask for a digital copy, so they send it to me usually in Microsoft Word format. I toss it in Word, and then I divide it. I cut the whole document in half in column format, and then I throw all the original text in the left, and I type in the right. And I'm reading on the left, and this is my first time reading it, so I'm reading and typing at the same time. So when stuff like that happens, it's pretty hilarious. So I'm like typing and laughing at the same time. So my eyes are doing one thing over there, my hands are doing another thing over here, so they kind of work independently. But I'm realizing while I'm doing this that there are these themes that are happening. And a theme that and then I started to jump into the background story by looking up online. And please check me for the time as well. I might ramble too much. But I started to recognize these themes, and later, much later, I decided to actually have a look online, see what conversations these stories generated. And sure enough, I came across some things that I thought were really interesting. This story is a story about Hapa. That's the bottom line. That's the main point to the entire series. There was a problem, and the problem is Hapa. And so I decided to look it up. And so I found that there were some other websites, stories online, where those themes were kind of glossed over, and it was just kind of brushed aside, because really what was being said was the real theme is courage and friendship and a little bit of magic. But then you have these other writers that were saying, excuse me, there's this entire theme running along the lines of race that are happening throughout the entire series. And check it out sometime, because it's really interesting. And I saw it, and so I thought I wanted to see what others were saying about it, because I thought it was quite obvious, really. And I had to search, I had to scroll quite a bit in order to find those storylines that kind of, touched on what I'm talking about, what I'm thinking about. And so it really is more about race than you might have thought. And I wonder how much of that appears in curriculum, because this appears in curriculum. It's material that many teachers, many schools actually put out there as material that kids can love and enjoy. And your attempt as a teacher is just to get them reading. You want them to just read, and practice their reading skills. So how much of the themes are actually coming through in the curriculum is a question that I have, and I don't have an answer to yet. So. And that becomes important to me, because I've already been approached by the Department of Education back in Hawaii to help them develop the curriculum for this in the Hawaiian language after it comes out. And so I'm having to educate myself suddenly. I didn't realize I was stepping into this when I just thought it was fun. But now it's like, oh crap, now I gotta follow up. Okay, so then I decided, all right, so my publisher and we decided that we're gonna do the Chronicles of Narnia. And so we're going to do the entire series of Harry Potter. So the next is coming up soon after I give myself a vacation. And then I'm on book number 3 at the moment of the Chronicles of Narnia, translating into Hawaiian. And I'm realizing as I'm doing much of this, I'm realizing that, wait a minute, I just did this story. I just did this storyline just in that other book. And I want to kind of draw attention to this particular character over here. How many of you are familiar with the Chronicles of Narnia and have actually read it? How many of you have seen the movies? Oh, okay, right on. At least that'll help. So I want to draw attention to this particular character over here because let me kind of survey the crowd. Good guy, bad guy. Good character, bad character. Bad guy, huh? I'm sure there'll be a Broadway production about that character like they did about the witch in Wizard of Oz. That'll prove you otherwise. But I wanted to point out this bit about it. So here's the problem. And this one is not quite close yet to being released. And so I'm still in the early stages working with my publisher on it. But I wanted to point out this part. So there's Mr. Beaver, Mrs. Beaver, and they're helping our protagonists along the way as they journey through Narnia. And this is the first of the series, right? So just as Mr. Beaver had been repeating the rhyme about Adam's flesh and Adam's bone, Edmund had been very quietly turning the door handle. Are you familiar with that part of the story? So they're trudging through the winter, it's harsh, and the brothers and sisters, they make it to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, they feed them, it's nice and warm. But Edmund has other plans. He's kind of the rebel guy who wants to do other things. And he's almost willing to sacrifice his own brothers and sisters so that he can go and enjoy a nice treat. So, and just before Mr. Beaver had begun telling them that the White Witch wasn't really human at all, but half djinn and half giantess, Edmund had got outside into the snow and cautiously closed the door behind him. That one little paragraph has a huge load of stuff to unpack as far as themes are concerned. Edmund is he's a protagonist, but kind of the antagonist as well. He's working against his brothers and sisters. But it's an expression of the problem. There's a problem here, it's a bad guy, and this bad guy is a bad guy because he's not human, or she's not human. And it's ironic that the Beaver had just been recounting or singing a song about Adam's flesh and Adam's bone, which is the definition of human, right? Because we are the products of Adam and Eve that makes us human. And Edmund decided to shut the door and walk away from everything human because he almost envied the fact that this one woman, the antagonist, was not human. She was half this and half that. She was Hapa Kupua Kiani and Hapa Pilikua. Right, so there's a problem, and the problem is Hapa. Did we not just talk about that already in the other story? And then in the second of the series is Prince Caspian. My first time to read this story as well. I had read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe when I was like 11 or 12 and thoroughly loved it. I mean, I loved it. It really kind of was those things for a kid that transported me as a story, you know, somewhere. I really enjoyed it, but this was my first time to read the second in the series, Prince Caspian. So there's another nugget that I found in there as well as I was going through it, and I caught it as I was doing it as well. So you've guessed it in the end, said Dr. Cornelius. So this is in the castle before Cornelius leaves the castle, and then that's how he comes. Well, then you have Prince Caspian, who has to run away from from his evil dad or uncle, and so they run away into Narnia and discover many years, like 1,000 years or so, had passed from the time of the first book in the series to the time of the second book. So generations had passed. So Dr. Cornelius was kind of like a caretaker to Prince Caspian as he grew up at the castle. But a point came where he had to leave because his life was in danger. So said Dr. Cornelius, or guessed it nearly right, I'm not a pure dwarf. I have human blood in me too. Many dwarfs escaped in the great battles and lived on, shaving their beards and wearing high-heeled shoes and pretending to be men. They have mixed with your Telmarines. I am one of those, only half a dwarf. He hapa wo. He hapa peke wo. And if any of my kindred, the true dwarfs, are still alive anywhere in the world, doubtless they would despise me and call me a traitor. So there's a problem, and it's hapa. And the problem is such a threat that they would call me a traitor just because of my blood. And then we move on, and they finally reach Narnia, meet other actual pure-blooded dwarfs sitting around the campfire, and he reveals himself as this Hapa guy, and right away the other dwarfs, they look at him and they go, what? What's wrong with you? So Nickabrick is one of those dwarfs, and he goes, a renegade dwarf, a half and halfer. Shall I pass my sword through his throat? There's hey, this guy's Hapa, can I kill him now? So be quiet, Nickabrick, said Trunkin. The creature can't help its ancestry. So this is a series that was first published in 1950, between 50 and 56, post-World War II. So yeah, there's a problem, and the problem is your Hapa, and I should really kill you. But wait to the end of the story when we resolve all these racial issues. And it really does have a nice resolution to it towards the end. So I point out these themes that are there, and these themes are thoroughly discussed throughout the thing. So before you get all bent out of shape about the Chronicles of Narnia, I do enjoy the series. I think it's great. And they say that almost intentionally because this is early in the story, and it takes the rest of the story to resolve this blatant racism that occurs. So, yeah, so you can't help your ancestry. What are you talking about? I can't help my ancestry. It's like, how is that a problem? So here are these various options. And as I said earlier, it's very much language specific. When I'm speaking Hawaiian, when I and my community are talking together in Hawaiian, there's no other word. I mean, that's the word. That is it. So it's not like I selected that word because it has political implications. That has nothing to do with it. It is the only word to use. So the word Hapa is mundane. It's pedestrian. It's as common as the. And there's no other connotation to it other than for function. So I'm telling you the story, and this is the word that we use. In the article that I produced for Kip Fulbeck's book that just came out there, I have a little bit of a discussion talking about, okay, so there's this word, but I'm more surprised as to why we have this word and why it's such an integral part of the Hawaiian language today. It's a borrowed word from English. It's not even a Hawaiian word necessarily. We borrowed it from English, but I can't see surviving in the language without the word Hapa. It is such a fundamental aspect of how we communicate in the language. I cannot even imagine another word to use in place of Hapa. So for us, I mean, here are some other possibilities that I could use, but they wouldn't work. It wouldn't work the same. And nobody bothers. Nobody bothers to wonder what else would we say, because that's it, done. We're there. And it can mean any of this. it can be as I said, pedestrian and mundane as any of this. So, and you absolutely need these words to express these thoughts, and that's what Hapa does for us. So they are simply concepts. So there's no problem with the word at all. It is the assumption that the receiver puts on it, because there are kind of explosive conversations that happen in Hawaii from time to time. It kind of pops up, rears its ugly head from time to time, about the word haole, because I'm half haole. I'm Hapa haole myself. My dad's from Gainesville, Texas. So I'm Hapa haole. What's the big deal? But certain people in society in Hawaii get all bent out of shape just because the word haole exists, because they assume it has nothing but negative connotation to it. And I don't get it myself. I'm like, I don't understand where you're coming. Why do you think that? I mean, again, haole is as mundane in Hawaiian, for Hawaiian speakers, as hapa. There is no other word, and for us, it carries no baggage. There is no baggage. I can say animal. Do you guys like animals? I love animals. But when I go, you animal, is that as cute and lovely anymore? Just because I said it, like, you're getting the point, right? When I call you an animal, I said it with a certain to it. And you can do the same with any damn word. Any common noun can be made a swear word by saying it like that, right? So what's the difference? So there is no baggage unless you put baggage on it. And so, again, this is a common use. This is the first usage I could find online of the word hapa in 1834, and yet it was created in the 1820s. I'm sure if I went into the archives and dug up a lot of the old paper material, I could find something even earlier than that. But it says, he hapa o ke mele no ka maki ana ki au moku ki ali'i o Maui. Ke au moku was an ali'i, or a chief of the island of Maui. And it's in Hawaiian culture, you compose a mele. A mele could be a poem or a lyric in honor of someone for a special event, usually birth or death or some other big event. And he hapa o ke mele, this is a portion of that mele. So this is just a bit, a portion, a part of that mele. I suppose there are a couple of these other words that could have been used instead of hapa. Some of these other words could be used there. But why? I mean, hapa works just fine. So, and look how quickly we adopted the concept of hapa soon after it was created. It's already by this point mainstream into the language. And here's another example from 1930. So now we do this kind of a thing. So this one is saying, wa ike no kaku ika ale no ke kai ika hapapa ia e kamakani. So it's describing how the ocean, in this particular case, is all tossed around, and it's been made hapa hapa, part this, part that, because the wind is blowing strong on the ocean. So it's caused the surface of the sea to become partially tossed up. That's a very mundane usage of the word hapa, and we reduplicate it, hapa hapa, because it's a bit of this and a bit of that. And that's how we use the term. Here are 3 other examples that come from the Harry Potter book of how we use hapa. So, no ka hapa nui o lako, for most of them, hapa plus nui is most, majority. Here's another example. He aloi lohi loa kona maka uliuli hake kia nahoi. Ko mo'i ka maka niani poi poi hapa a he lo ihi loa kona ihu. Ke ke'e nahoi. This is descriptive of Albus Dumbledore when he first appears on the street in the first Harry Potter book. And it says, he wore half moon glasses. So they were half moon, or in this case, more literally half circle shaped lenses of his glasses. And in another case, he ahiulo kona nana ana mekikai hapa o kona umi describing Hagrid. So he looked really wild in appearance because part of his beard covered his face. Okay? So part of his beard, I don't know how else I could have said that. That's the way we say it. I translated The Hobbit into Hawaiian 3 years ago, and that was an experience. That was a lot of fun. I lie. But it was an experience. In the end, I finally got it. This is where I developed OCD. Because I only do this as a hobby. Sheesh, I mean, I have a job, I go to work, and I come home. Then I kick up my feet and then spend an hour, maybe, to just hammering away in it, and I try to put it away, and sometimes they get stuck up there in the tree with the damn spiders, and I can't leave them up there, and I get obsessed, and I keep going, because I can't leave them there, and next thing you know, it's midnight. I developed OCD trying to get the boys out of the tree. But again, you get elements of Hapa that are kind of packaged in other themes. So you get here an example where this is in the early part where they're describing Bilbo Baggins' background. And it's saying here that hobbits, they're little people, short people, makai o hapalua pa ko kakou lo ihi, about half our height. So we have hapalua. Here's another example. O Gandalf hoi I na ilohe ai ki kei hapaha o ka'u ilohe nonna. If you had only heard a quarter of what I've heard of Gandalf, you'd know him for, being this kind of guy. So the other was a half, and this is a quarter. And then we have a description here of Bilbo Baggins' ancestry. So he comes from a background where, let's see, in the old days, so in the old days, his ancestor, grandfather, took a wife who was a fairy as a wife. So if his grandfather was Hobbit and his grandmother was fairy, what does that make of the next generation? You got a bunch of Hapa fairies running around. So Bilbo Baggins is actually Hapa. He's Hapa Hobbit, Hapa fairy. And that becomes the reason that is explained why he's so adventurous, which is unusual. He's weird as a Hobbit. Hobbits don't do that, they stay home. But he did the opposite. Why? Because he's Hapa. And so we have here another example. So this comes from Harry Potter. Okay. So this character comes out. Harry Potter is in the forest. He's there with a couple guys. He's being punished by going hunting with Hagrid. And so they're there, and then suddenly emerges this character from behind the trees, and they're terrified because, is it a horse? From the head to the waist, it was human. But from the waist down, it wasn't human. It was Leo, horse. And I had to create this term because we don't have a term. I digged around and I could not find an actual term for centaur. So I created this Hapa term, Leo Naka. Leo is horse, Kanaka is human. Leo Naka. And we have kind of a previous example in traditional Hawaiian language of something Naka, which is the back part of Kanaka, right, for human. And so it kind of works, and I'm hoping my audience kind of comes along with me as they read and go through the term. Back in 2013, I translated Alice's Adventures in Wonderland And then we have another case of Hapa. In this case, what kinds of Hapa elements do you see here? What do you guys see? Yeah, there's kind of a dragon, but there's kind of an eagle, could be a dragon, and kind of a lion. So you got Hapa this, Hapa that, which is a glyphin. But there's no other way to talk about it. It's elements of this mashed together into one concept. It's Hapa. So you have centaurs that are Hapa, and you have glyphins that are Hapa. And I wanted to share with you some other friends of mine who are Hapa as well, whom I'd never met. So we have Abraham Lincoln. In order for you to get the point, I'm going to have to do this in Hawaiian so that you know. Ke ia ko uhoa a Pelehama Lincoln, he Hapa e Nilani o ia, he wahi apana e Hapa lili I Sekotia I Lilani, he Hapa I Lilani, Maliapa he po e Hapa hua e no. Ko u ali I ke ia, e ke kamal I wahini ka iulani, he Hapa kanaka o ia, he Hapa Sekotia e liki no miau. Ko hoa ke ia Robert De Niro, Hapa I Kalia, Hapa I Lelani, Hapa Kelimania, Hapa Holani, Lili I kona Hapa e Nelani, Hapa Plani Nahoi. He Hapa Kepani, Hapa Kolea, Brian T. ke ia. Hapa couples make Hapa babies, right? And so we have examples of a Hapa connection. And of course, I couldn't finish the presentation without pointing out the fact that we have Jason Momoa. He Hapa kanaka, Hapa kerimania, maliapa ke kai poe mea Hawaii. There was no other way for me to explain that to you in Hawaiian but to use the word Hapa. So my point is that I wanted to kind of taper off towards the end by kind of reading to you a section of the article that I produced for Kip's book in there. And it's this, but we cannot imagine not being Hapa today, nor can we imagine having no Hapa people of any combination of races in our communities today. Perhaps this is the Hapa of solace I can offer to anyone of mixed heritage who struggles with feeling comfortable in their own skin. It is inconceivable that you should not exist. Not in this day and age. So I wanted to wrap up by wondering out loud if our home has room to expand. If we can add an extension, maybe do a bit of spring cleaning, and wonder out loud to ourselves, what about my house? This entire community of Hapa, where am I in relation to what I think about it? Is it just this one thing? Can it be this other thing? If you look at my gallery of friends out there, who isn't Hapa is the question. So how do we label ourselves? How do we see ourselves? And how is it that what we look like doesn't match the concept? How is it that it does match the concept? I think is the bridge. And I think I wanted to open it up at this time for conversation. Anything you have to say that you would like to talk about and bring up, any points that maybe that I didn't touch upon, I would appreciate. So I want to pass it over to the crowd now, if you would kind of contribute to the conversation about our home. Haole is a term that existed before white people arrived in Hawaii, and it was descriptive of anyone and everyone who isn't Hawaiian, no matter where you come from, because we do have stories way back in the past, mostly having to do with South Pacific interactions, people arriving We know that for ourselves as a people, that we don't originate from Hawaii. We came from either Tahiti or Marquesas Islands. After having settled in Hawaii over generations, then people who would later arrive from those places or anywhere else were called haole. This term also exists in the Marquesan language down in the South Pacific. They say haue. So I don't know of any other Polynesian people who have that word. They have other words that actually mean the same kind of thing, but haole, haue. In the 1800s, there started to evolve this distinction that actually it tends to be more white-skinned people, not specifying England or Sweden or Germany or anywhere else of origin, place of origin. Since the US arrival in Hawaii, then it started to, so we're talking the 1900s, then it started to shift even more towards specifically American. More so than if you say the word haole in context, whether you're speaking Hawaiian or in English or Pidgin, when you use the word haole, it has kind of more recently kind of taken on this other meaning of US as opposed to European.
It's interesting because you've been using the word so inclusively just to mean mixed of anything.
Yeah.
But outside of Hawaii, I think that we've appropriated it to just mean part Asian and part anything else.
Hapa or haole?
Hapa.
Hapa.
And I'm just wondering, and you know, like I've always called myself Hapa, and I'm Japanese and Caucasian, and I have no ties to being
Japan.
native Hawaiian.
Oh.
And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that, of the kind of rigid way that we use the word outside of Hawaii.
Yeah, so you guys need to listen to the podcast. Listen to the podcast on Hapa on PRI. You can go to PRI.org and then do a search for my name, Keao NeSmith, and it'll be one of the ones that pop up. And there was one feature that was done on Hapa, and I was asked basically that question: what's my reaction to these part Asian, part white people appropriating the term to mean specifically themselves? I wasn't aware that that was going on. Seriously, I wasn't aware that that was happening at the time. However, about 10 years earlier, and I said this there at the time too, I have an experience where I was at a party, local party at a friend's house back home, and a friend of mine had a girlfriend who was part Japanese, part haole from here, from Sacramento area. Her family's from there. And I was having conversation here, she was having conversation there, people were just talking, and I heard her say, "Oh, I'm Hapa," and I was so surprised. I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you were Hawaiian." And she goes, "I'm not Hawaiian." I was like, you just said you're Hapa. That means you're Hawaiian, right?" She goes, "No," and she doesn't look Hawaiian, right? But you know, we have mixed blood Hawaiians who don't look Hawaiian either, blonde hair, blue eyed still. And for us, it's like, ha, 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 oh, okay, whatever. It's funny to look at you and you're blonde hair, blue eyed, and you're saying you're Hawaiian. We'll just go, okay, whatever. Because that's how we are today. And in her case, I thought that was just one of those haha cases. And she floored me when she explained that to me. And I was like, "What? I didn't know you guys did that. Oh, okay." I don't know, it wasn't much of an issue. So what? It's still accurate, right? Look at the definition of hapa. It's a bit of this, a bit of that, bit of anything. So it's a bit of the ingredients used to make cake. So it means absolutely any and everything, you know. No big deal. I just thought, okay, cool. I also thought there was another layer of surprise with me that we would have this influence in the world, you know, that people, because we don't think much of ourselves in Hawaii. It's like nobody's paying attention to us. They just watch Jason Momoa. So to realize that, I was like, oh wow, okay. Cool. It's still accurate. It's still correct. And again, it's another one of those experiences of I'm just walking along the street and here are all these stores and there's this big window and I'm looking into it and I see those people call themselves Hapa and I'm like, oh, okay. And then just carry on. So what is my reaction? I am aware that, again, from the PRI bit, that there were some people who are from Hawaii who reacted really negatively to it. I'm like, what's the matter with you? He's like, so what? What do you eat at home every day? Oh, sushi and chow mein and fried rice. I was like, you know, only you can steal from other people's culture, but they can't take from us. What's the matter with you? Yeah, so I don't get why people would be upset about it. It's hypocritical.
Any other questions? Comments?
There.
Similar to what the young lady just said, I'm half Japanese, half European, and as a young kid traveling to Hawaii, my brother and I were asked by some locals if we were Hawaiian. You know, tan, we're sitting out there,
yeah.
you know, sort of kind of mix in, and it's, you know, we weren't. And they said, oh, they refer to us as Hapa Haole, the locals, and they're, you know, not scholars. They're just they were just sort of gave that name to us.
Everyday term.
Yeah, which to me was there was never any connotation, there was never any negativity to it, and actually gave us some way to identify ourselves and saying we're not, you know, we're not 100% Japanese or English or Irish. We're this other thing, which is its own thing.
Yeah.
And then I think over the years, as you've found out and a lot of people found out, it sort of morphed and it became, a lot of Asians use it to say half Asian. And I looked at our last president and I said, that guy's like me.
Yeah.
Even though we don't really share any race, it's like, that guy's Hapa like me.
Yeah, I think the composite of that guy, our President Obama, was more representative of the country than some guy who's not.
Sure.
Right? So if you're talking about being relatable, yeah, no, for sure. So Hapa Haole, again, in the article, in the book, I have a bit about my grandma. So I have my Haole grandma and I have my Hawaiian grandma, and we love them, you know, immensely, both equally, you know, and they loved us equally. There's 7 of us kids in my family, so we got 5 boys, 2 girls. The girls tended to pull more my dad's side. They got more of that Haole look to them. The boys kind of more on the Hawaiian side. And I actually say in the paper that there's this thing where my Hawaiian grandma, she would refer to me if I was with her, or, you know, us, my brothers and sisters, as her Hapa Haole grandkids. And I remember as a kid going, not because of the Haole part, because of the Hapa part. Because Hapa only means part. And I'm like, I'm not part your grandson, because I was offended. I was like, I was hurt that she would think that I'm Hapa her grandson. I'm like, I'm not Hapa your grandson, I'm all your grandson. But growing up, she and I were super close. We were very tight. I went and lived with her. I'm the only one in my family who speaks Hawaiian, and it's only because of her, because she chose to speak to me in the language all the time, without exception. So I feel extremely attached to that grandma. My other grandma, Granny Mama, she's up there with God right now. So yeah, no, Hapa Haole, it's not the Haole side that's the offensive, it's the Hapa side again. But we love the Hapa anything. We sometimes when we talk with local people, we're proud to list off all the different things, and then Mom will yell out from the back, don't forget the Dutch. Oh, Dutch too. So yeah, so we have that real affinity for the mix, because it feels inclusive, you know? It feels comfortable because it's inclusive.
If you can just hold on just a second. We're trying to capture all the questions so that everybody can hear, but also we have KPCC here recording this conversation. So we want to just make sure we catch everybody's questions on the microphone.
I was just going to say that one of the reasons I think a lot of people use the term Hapa, or they started to in the last couple of decades here, is because of the large population of Japanese Americans in Hawaii, and then it comes through the family connections to the mainland. I mean, I know that's how I learned the term. I was born in '66, so there were no, you know, mixed people like me around.
Yeah.
And when my cousins, who are about 2 years younger than me, moved to Hawaii from Torrance, Japanese American side. My cousin came back for Christmas and said, "Oh my God, there's all these people in my school. They're called Hapa and they're like you." And then she brought her, her yearbook at the end of the year, and I'm just like paging through and seeing all these faces that look like me-ish. And it just felt great. It was a humongous, life-changing thing. Yeah. So I feel like, it came to be so common in the Asian American community for kind of positive reasons. I know it's got to be annoying to a lot of people when it's used in an ignorant way that erases Native Hawaiians. But I do feel like there's it comes from a positive place.
Yeah, no, for sure. 2 points that come out of that, and I'm glad you reminded me because it was on my mind earlier and then slipped because I think it was Harry Potter that distracted me. But it's interesting, in Hawaii because of locals in Hawaii, you may not have any Hawaiian in your ancestry and you still call yourself Hapa because being in Hawaii, close proximity to Hawaiian speakers, I guess, the mundaneness of the word carries over. So for locals, you could be, part Portuguese, white, Filipino, Japanese, whichever. And we still talk about that person as Hapa. It didn't have to be Hawaiian. It's not just in my family's context because we are Hawaiian that, and then it's different again in Hawaiian. If you're speaking in Hawaiian, if we're a group of people who are only speaking in Hawaiian, there's zero connotation that there's a Hawaiian requirement in your mix because it is our term. It's the only term that you can possibly use no matter the mix. So it really is specific to your context. The other point I wanted to talk about that you reminded me is for us who are of Hawaiian background, this the relation between the United States is quite touchy. That's quite a touchy subject in Hawaii. In 1893, our government of the Hawaiian Kingdom had multiple treaties with the U.S. and every other country, embassies around the world. The U.S. simply showed up with guns and held Queen Liliuokalani captive. They assisted a local American band of only 13 guys who held guns and then one day on a Sunday morning marched onto the Iolani Palace with the support of one shipload of Marines, U.S. Marines, and held Queen Liliuokalani captive and said, just like in Serbia, over there with the Russians, what they did in Crimea, this is now our house. And we're like, no, I don't think so. No, this is our house and you have no say whatsoever. Until today, that has not been fixed. So yes, this U.S. dichotomy in Hawaii is still touchy subject, still under international law, still illegal. There is no, it becomes okay over time, no. So that is a touchy thing. So for ethnic Hawaiians who are part or pure or whatever, and we're proud of the Hawaiian side. Princess Kaiulani is my hero. We're very possessive of that history that is ours. For those who are Hapa, mixed, not ethnic Hawaiian in Hawaii, say Japanese or Chinese and white or some other mix in Hawaii, there's not that same association. They do not have an affinity for Japan. They don't wear hapi coat. They don't, we'll even have cases where guys will just wear malo today because even though, and it could be fair skin, but I have some Hawaiian and I feel this rah-rah about my Hawaiian identity. So that kind of thing is happening today. You don't see the same thing happening with other Hapa mixes for their home country on that side of their family. So you don't have that for ethnic Hawaiians like myself, we gravitate to our Hawaiian background. You don't have that same kind of gravitating to your Japanese ancestry somewhere out there in Sapporo or whatever. It tends to be the other way. They tend to gravitate more toward their American nationality. And they were taught that by their parents because we're talking the 442nd and, rah-rah America. And so they gave up names like Kenji and now it's Glenn, Robert and stuff like that. And so they tend to shift away from that feeling of nostalgia, love for their Japanese roots and Japanese culture, more towards hip hop and, The Simpsons and that whole culture associated with the US and nothing to do anymore with Japan. So there's no more that kind of thing. So there's a difference at play. It's really interesting to watch. And sometimes we get groupies that come on board with the Hawaiian, feeling of that movement. So you get people who have no Hawaiian background, anything, but they're with us in those big gatherings and on Iolani Palace, with the Hawaiian flags. And so we have this kind of thing going on in Hawaii where there are layers of it, right? So there's layers of that feeling of emotion toward my family's background, my neighbor's background, then on a bigger scale and on the bigger scale. And so it comes in this feeling of aloha and happiness with our identity. It comes in these various levels or layers. So it's kind of like an onion. Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. Anything. Okay.
Sorry, did you? Oh, I just was. Okay, someone else. Okay. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to comment and give my appreciation to you for putting some context for me behind Hapa Haole and just Hapa in general, because I've only ever thought of it, and I'm coming from a mainland perspective. I've only having heard of it as a term to refer to people who are, mixed Asian and white, not necessarily Hawaiian.
Can I interrupt you for a sec? Is that true since you were born or later in your life?
I think that's something I've heard my entire life. I'm in my late 20s for context, and I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak for maybe myself and maybe my small circle of friends who have used that term or have heard that term used in a positive way to describe us.
What was your experience in a negative way? Was it ever negative to you?
I think people have used other negative words to describe me, not Hapa
people
Haole.
use negative words about me all the time, but
well, other racial slurs.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I've never heard it as a slur before. But I appreciated hearing it about the context within the Hawaiian language, because as a non-Hawaiian speaker, I didn't know that, and I'd only ever thought of it as being something that was a descriptor of someone's ethnic background, not as a part of a language in itself.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to thank you for sharing that and giving me more perspective about using that term to describe myself or other people around me as I try to decolonize my own language. So thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. You and I are the same age. I was born in '66 too. And so, and I only came to hear this term being used in this way like I said, in the PRI thing. That was about 10 years. It was 2004, I remember the year, when I first heard that, and I was like, huh. And then it dropped, the subject matter just dropped because you just go back to life in Hawaii. And then until this happened, I was invited to participate in Kip's project, and I was like, it's kind of weird. Oh, why are you so interested in that? It's like, so I haven't had that negative experience. I'm kind of interested and curious if you guys can help me out about that. Can anybody talk about about their negative experience about being, I don't know, racially stereotyped or talked about in that kind of disparaging kind of way? It's an experience I don't know. Oh, I did mention once that I went away from Hawaii and I lived in Utah for a while. And I was working at a computer software place, and I got to experience it firsthand a bit when going to, one time I was at a restaurant. I was there with another Hawaiian friend like myself. We're waiting, and then the haole girl at the front door, and then we're waiting, and it's kind of getting long, but we're having a conversation anyway. And then these other haole people walked in the door, and immediately they went and took it, and then we went, hey, we were here this whole time, what are you talking about? And then they completely pretended we're invisible. And so we're like, there's no other reason why they would have done that unless they thought we were not worthy of being in their restaurant or something. So, And then I had another 1 or 2. And when I left Utah, I went back home, I was like, wow, that was kind of cool. I mean, I experienced that. I was like, wow, that's my first time. Yeah, I was like, wow, I got points.
You mentioned having negative experiences. I am half Filipino, half white, but the negative experiences don't necessarily come here, but actually from within my own family. Because I am the only, I would say only half person from my mom's side, and everybody else is pure Filipino. I've gotten a lot of comments about, oh, you don't know Filipino culture, or you don't know the Asian, like you're not fully Asian.
Was the language used in your home?
Yeah, so I understand our language, which is Bisaya, but I don't speak it, and I'm made fun of a lot for speaking it poorly, and I just use English because that's my experience. Should I? Yeah. Okay. But, and it's kind of funny that that's my personal negative experience, but I've also seen it in this kind of backwards positive light over there when I visit my family as well. So I get a lot of compliments for being like light-skinned, and everybody saying that they wish they looked more like me. And it's funny because in the advertising there as well, it's like a lot of pale people or people who look like me, but not those who look like my family or the ones I would walk by the street. So it's kind of funny that there's like this negative light, but also this backwards positive light, and that's just from my experience, and that's my comment. I don't necessarily have a question, but yeah.
Right. And in my mom's generation, she grew up in the mid-1900s, and it was like that. There was this envy backwards. Before, there was this romantic notion about Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders, even Filipinos, that there was this adventurism about, going over there and experiencing that culture. Well, World War II time, everything shifted. And there was this envy in the other direction. I need to be more white. I need to be less Polynesian. And that's when we lost our language. The Hawaiian language is one of the most endangered languages in the world right now, and it was the mid-1900s that was the turning point. And it had everything to do with the US propaganda at the time of the war. You got to be American. In order to show it, you have to speak English only. And parents of that time who were having babies at around World War II were the first to latch on to that and stop speaking Hawaiian to their kids. And now, 2 generations later, it's turned opposite. And so there's kind of a generation gap in Hawaii where my generation are resentful that we don't speak our language. But when they were young parents, they were conditioned to this way, that you have to be more American and you have to show it by speaking only English. And today I'm like, why wasn't multilingualism an option? Come on, people, why did it have to be one way or the other and not multilingual? At least in Tahiti, the French didn't care about the people speaking their language. So most people in Tahiti speak both languages, their Tahitian language, which is like Hawaiian, and French. And the French government never cared that they were multilingual. But in the US system, when they came over, it was a big deal, English only. And the posters are still there. You still see them from, carried over from World War II times. Speak English with Uncle Sam. Mr. Sam, I say, he's not my uncle. So we have the similar thing, and it has to do with that generational thing, so my parents' generation.
I just want to thank you as well for coming and speaking about this. My grandfather's from Hawaii, but he's ethnically Japanese. So I grew up hearing this word and knew it had roots in Hawaii, but like someone mentioned, a lot of people I met along the way have always just thought Hapa is part Asian, especially in California, maybe because there's a lot of Hapa clubs and colleges and stuff. But I really like that this was brought to the museum because I think it's important to know where the roots are. So thank you so much for explaining.
You're welcome, and thank you. Yeah, I think this has been a cathartic experience for Kip himself, right? Would you say, Elizabeth? Because for him, he also came from that idea, or earlier in his life, it was that kind of more closed definition of the term. And I think his experience going through this project over the past 15 plus years has opened his house more. So he's extended it with lanais and other things, and to kind of be more inclusive of this concept that it really is more than just my experiences, these other people's experiences too. Yeah, I think that's interesting. And I'm learning too. I mean, it's like Kip's experience and my experience are like way different from each other, and we're kind of coming across like this to kind of understand and appreciate each other's experience too. So yeah, no, thank you to the museum. I really appreciate the invitation and taking care of me while I've been here. And it's a big deal. I mean, sheesh, I don't know if I could get this size audience in Hawaii on the same subject matter. Because everybody would be like, why are you going to talk about that?
So what happens now? We've got United States version, well, Hawaii is the United States. Now we've got two different versions. So what do we do?
Nothing. Nothing, yeah, just carry on. It'll fix itself, I think.
I was interested in going back to the examples you gave in literature of how the theme of a mixed race plays into sort of heroes and villains.
Villains, right.
Yeah, and wondering, in your experience of translating, some of these books, how often is it used more in the villain sense, like the White Witch, versus the Bilbo Baggins sense, where he's a hero because he has this influence of another perspective and another culture?
Yeah, it happens a lot. I think there's some of the material when I did my PhD thesis, which really I have a PhD in linguistics, and in order to in applied linguistics particularly, and language teaching in general, and I had to include a section on the historical context of it, and so I had to pull resources. And gather statements that were made that I quote in my PhD paper, turn of the century, just after the U.S. invasion, 1893. It was part of the rationale for the invasion was we needed to fix the problem that these people were having, that they didn't speak English. So there were actual statements being made as justification for the invasion that there needed to be a turn to English monolingualism. And multilingualism was not even an option. So there was that turn. So there were lots of people of the era who were, like Princess Kaiulani and myself, who were demi, they were half-half. And there were statements that were being made to justify the US presence, that we're here because we need to fix these people. And so that's part of our historical and political history, So that's deeply rooted in this generation, today's generation. Parents and grandparents today in Hawaii who were of that opinion that we needed to shift more towards English and Rara America and stuff like that in the 1900s are now shifting again. So my mom today says it, and she's turning 84 in a couple days, and she now already, she cries about it. She's I regret that we didn't have the Hawaiian language, and you're so lucky you were with grandma and I was the oddball. I was embarrassed when I was a kid growing up with my grandma, my Hawaiian grandma, and that she spoke Hawaiian to me. When it was just she and me, it was just fine because it's just us. As soon as we stepped away from the yard, I was embarrassed. I didn't want her to speak Hawaiian to me in front of other people because it was still that it's embarrassing. So my mom grew up in an era where you have to demonstrate how American you are. And if you're somewhere in between, then you're not, there's something wrong with you. Yeah, so much like the depictions that we saw, the problem is Hapa. You know, and today it's shifting the other way. The kind of the social conditioning today is kind of be proud of your diversity, be proud of your indigenous heritage and all of this kind of thing. That really was not the case 50 years ago. So yeah, I'm not sure if I touched on your, let me know, yeah, if I didn't answer your question. Yeah, so shift is occurring. Culture is always moving, right? Culture is always moving. It's never static. And it's wrong to develop any kind of policy based on these normative, positivistic viewpoints that are false.
I don't know if we were done with like the negative experience.
Yeah, go right ahead. Let's be negative.
Well, I grew up in San Francisco, and you know, it's a very diverse city, and so I didn't have any like problems with like bullying because of my race. But I do feel that people who are Hapa, like myself, do experience some sort of alienation, whether it be subtle or aggressive.
From who?
For me, you know, my dad's white, my mom's Japanese, but like from both sides. And for example, specifically, and it's not necessarily like their fault for alienating, I guess. Just an example is I gravitate a lot towards Japan, like the culture.
Oh, okay.
And I'm fluent in Japanese. I'm
cool.
very familiar with the culture. But you know, if I go to Japan, if someone talks to me, they're going to speak to me in English. And
looking at you, they would make assumptions, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And like, you know, that can't really be helped. I feel like just by looking at me, you know, you're going to think, oh, he's a foreigner, so chances are he's not going to know Japanese. But I do, and you know, I do feel strong ties to Japan. And
they think you're weird for that?
Well, no. It's just like, just from like something simple as that, I do feel like a little bit disconnected, like I'm treated as an outsider, I guess. So, I mean, in some ways, I guess it's negative. Some ways, I don't know, it's not something that could be helped, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who experiences something like this.
Yeah, well, this creature can't help his ancestry, right? So, yeah, it's not your fault, for one thing. I thought I was going to minor in or major in Japanese language back in the day. I lived in Japan one summer in high school, worked there, and then I became really good at the language and was pursuing it in university and stuff like that, and got really far actually. And then I woke up one morning and said, I'm over it. You know, I satisfied that itch, and I'm going to move on with other things. And I never went back to anything Japanese again since that time. But recently, a couple years ago, I went back, and it was amazing how fast it came back. I was like, oh wow, that's amazing! Like from coming into the airport and at the customs, and they're speaking to me in Japanese. I actually know what they're saying. And it had been long before that since I was even interested in Japanese again. And I was considered weird. Look, I don't look anything Japanese. And I didn't care either. So it's like, I don't care what someone else thinks of it. Yeah, no, good on you for pursuing studies. I mean, people pursue languages and cultures outside their own all the time. So once again, there's absolutely nothing abnormal about you existing at all. It's impossible that you should not or could not exist today. Anyway, so might as well enjoy the ride. Right? I don't know how much time we have left, so you raise your hand whenever. Okay.
Hi, I was just wondering if you had any idea why it was the word Hapa that came through rather than, say, whatever the Cantonese word is for half or the Japanese word is for half.
Yeah, I mean, that's my thing. When I, back in that party scene I was at back in 2004, my question to my friend, this girl, who was born and raised in Sacramento, her dad's white, her mom's Japanese from Japan and raised her and her brother and sister speaking Japanese. So she's actually a speaker of Japanese as a native speaker. And that was my question to her, is why didn't you take Hambun? Why did you, what's wrong with Hambun? I mean, you're half this, that's the Japanese term. She goes, yeah, but other Asians aren't Japanese. I was like, well, you guys aren't Hawaiian either. Why'd you take ours, you know? And as if I cared. I really didn't care that day. We're having a conversation, and I thought that was a point to make.
I was just going to say, having been there when people were, just sort of having been here when the word was gaining traction, it was because of how inclusive it is and how inclusive it is when you're in Hawaii with all the kinds of, as compared to like taking a Japanese word where people in Japan don't really think it's a great thing to be mixed, you know. It was, yeah, like if you take the term Hapa and identify with it, you're also sort of feeling, that loving feeling of, you know, where it's okay to be mixed in a setting where other people are also feeling good about it. That's just what was happening back then.
That makes sense to me. That's good enough for me.
One more question?
One more question?
I just wanted to kind of add on, so I'm not Hapa, I'm like full Chinese, but you were mentioning how like in the 50s there was this kind of feeling like embarrassed to touch your Hawaiian roots, right? The wanting to be more Americanized. So even like, I grew up in the 80s, even as recent as then, I don't know how it is now, there was still the same feeling, you know, if you're talking to your relatives and you're native, like Chinese or something like that, amongst your friends, that would be kind of embarrassing. Or even if you were eating like ethnic foods, the general, and I grew up around here in LA, right? Like she grew up in the Midwest, I don't know, it's probably worse there. But even here, there was this propaganda to conform, to be all American, and you know, if you weren't that, then you would be shunned. So just kind of wanted to share that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, for sure.
The Latino, I mean, it's the same thing to male.
Right,
too.
right.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, we're having a lot of the same type of experiences in different ways. Today, as a result of that break in the mid-1900s, so we today have lots of local Hawaiians who now go to university looking for that thing that they missed out on in their homes from intergenerational transmission of the language and the culture. You can't do that anymore because our parents don't speak it. Most of our grandparents today don't speak it, didn't get raised with it, but they remember their parents and their grandparents using the language, but they themselves don't. So because to fill that void, to fill that gap, many enrollments in universities, community colleges, universities in Hawaii among Hawaiians is really skyrocketed in the past couple decades alone. Not really in the 80s yet, more 90s and into the 2000s. Looking for the thing, and I actually write about in my PhD paper, the problem that we're having now is that if you want to look at it as a problem, which I think it's important to be critical about what's happening in the moment while appreciating that it's happening in anyway, is the fact that it's happening poorly. So we have people who acquire the Hawaiian language in a classroom setting from a teacher who learned it also from the classroom setting from a textbook, who speaks it really badly and is now teaching 80 students every day, and who are now speaking it worse than that teacher. And so terms like Hapa and how they are misrepresented and misunderstood and used improperly, ungrammatically. I came from speaking Hawaiian at home with my grandmother, who was raised in a grass house in Puna, Hawaii by Kalapana near the Black Sand Beach. That was her culture and her native language growing up. That's what got infused in me. So yes, I can tell the difference, and that's my big beef that I have with my colleagues back home. It's not entirely negative, but there you go. So as a result of that, and then what if your kids or your grandkids suddenly do want to gravitate back to Chinese culture and everything, and which doesn't jive with your upbringing here in LA and stuff like that, then what, you know? So do you foster that? Yeah.
You go to Saturday school.
Saturday schools, which we did have in Hawaii, even through World War II and after World War II, there were Japanese schools, Chinese schools, Saturday schools, full day. Hawaiian was never allowed. Hawaiians had tried to apply for such a thing as a Saturday school and were shut down constantly, but Japanese schools were allowed.
Could it be rebellion among, I don't say what is used. I mean, could it be a rebellion there? We didn't speak it at home, not we, but we didn't speak it at home. Oh, but now I'm going to do it now just to irritate my parents.
I'm sure there could be some of that.
You just jump into something new.
I'm sure there could be some of that, yeah.
I'm thinking, oh, that's rebellion.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of rebellion going on if that's... yeah, it's a good thing, but I'm sure there's a motivation there, but I'm not sure that that's the major motivation for the majority in that community or of the numbers of those people who are doing that thing. Yeah, I don't know. So what do you think? Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate the time. Mahalo.